Family homes. Listen, this is one of those controversial discussions. Gets very interesting and heated each time you have to unpack family homes in the current or under the current legal system. Guys, let's talk about what family homes are and let's talk about why it's difficult for families to really preserve these family homes in this day and age. And let's talk about whether or not this is a possibility right now under the current legal system. And if that is a possibility, for example, families can be able to preserve houses as family homes. What do they do under the current legal system to make sure that this actually does become a success? Right? So let's not waste time. I want us to delve into this discussion, but for the folks that are new here, hi. We welcome you onto this channel. My name is Yolanda Nyengeza. I'm an attorney and a director at a law firm here in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is called Nyengeza Attorneys. It's good to have you here. And for the people coming back the second time, third time, doesn't matter how many times, we welcome you back. And we hope that this discussion, rather, is going to be fruitful and useful to you. So what's a family home? Well, I'm going to define this very loosely, right? But normally a family home is this house that has significant value. Often different generations grew up in this household, and there was a lot of memories made there. And so you'd find that the family, majority of the family, has a desire that this house must remain in this family and it must never be lost, right? This used to be very easy to do back in the day because people who lived in the rural areas understood how these things operate, maintaining and preserving a family home, because the way in which they live is all about communal living and family, preservation, etc. So there was always this understanding that such households are never sold, they stay in the family. But why is it now difficult for family homes to really be a success in this day and age under this current legal system? Well, first things first, we have to recognize that people have changed, right? Like I said, in the rural areas, things operate differently. But now people have moved closer to the cities, right? They are in the cities, and how they think and how they view things totally differs nowadays. For example, people are okay with building their own. Once they've grown up or they've lost a parent, people would often say, guys, let's go up. Our separate ways, we'll meet when we meet, but let's just live our separate lives. And often that means dismantling or selling that particular home, which would have worked as a family home, right? So this is the first reason why it's difficult to have these family homes preserved as such. And the second reason is because the people who have this vision of preserving these houses as family homes, I don't think they understand what the legal system currently, or where the legal system currently stands. And so they have this thinking and understanding that things should operate as easily as back in the day, forgetting that right now, as we speak, if, for example, they pass away and they had a desire as the parents that this house passes on to others and others, unfortunately, it's difficult to attain this if they have not put certain structures in place. Why? It is simply because if they pass away, especially without drafting any wills or putting in place anything, their children inherit their property, right? So they become co-owners of a property. Now, if these children, with the influence of the cities, etc., decide, what, we want to sell, we'll just make do, this money could be useful to do something else, they will do so, which means that the household that was meant to be a family home is dismantled altogether. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of rights and understanding of the law, and people are utilizing their rights, they're exercising them. And as a result, these family home houses rather are not really becoming a success. And a lot of people are actually against that because they expect that things should continue to operate in that same way. And unfortunately, in this day and age, in this Western world, things are different. And the third reason why this is often not a success, again, is people don't communicate properly their intentions, and they don't really have these open-ended discussions with their other, children who have grown up right now in the Western world, so that they understand why exactly they want this to stay a family home and the significance of such homes. And so when there's a lack of open discussions in this regard, a lot of people do not see things the same way. And as soon as you pass away, even if you said one time in your deathbed, can you guys keep this home as a family home, don't sell it, they might do the opposite, because they know that they have rights when it comes to that property. And unfortunately, they're going to exercise those rights. Whether or not they're going to push the mission of attaining or preserving a family home is none of their business. And then the fourth thing, again, like I said, with the second issue, people are not recognizing where the law stands. People, for example, have this desire that this property that they had built must stay as a family home. But then they forget that, or are not aware that this property is going to be left to people. People are going to inherit it. The very same people we're talking about might actually be married, and be married in community of property. And there's a possibility at times that because of the in community of property marriage, there might be a reason for the other spouse who's not a part of this family to actually get the share in that household. What does this do? It dilutes the whole thing of a family home, and therefore becomes difficult to really become a family home, that particular house that was left behind. So these are the main reasons, right? There's so many others as well, but these are the main four that I've picked up why it's difficult for people to do what? To preserve houses nowadays as family homes. Now we've spoken about these problems, right? Now we recognize why this is difficult to attain in this day and age. So what kind of solutions are there? How should people be thinking? What should people be invoking in order for them to really succeed at this, ideal of establishing or preserving a house as a family home? Well, the first thing that I would suggest, like I said, number one, you open channels of communication. Understand where your children stand when it comes to this whole family home narrative. Are they for it, right? Are they willing to push the agenda, especially when you're not there? Because they then will have control once you're not there. Is this something that they also agree with? And number two, in this discussion, just have a discussion, or an open one. How is the property going to be taken care of? Who's going to pay rates and taxes here? How are people going to live here? You probably have 5 children who have their own children, right? And this property might just be 2-bedroom. How are people going to work here, right? If people are coming to, let's say this is a holiday now, they want to come to the main home, which is the family home. How is this thing going to work? Think about those things. Have a discussion with the children you're leaving behind, so that at least there is some form of understanding. Because for some people, when you say this must be a family home, they're probably looking at you like, yo, you have no idea. As soon as something happens to you, we're going to do differently, because we don't want any problems. So rather assess where people are, so that you can see whether or not they're going to help push this agenda of you succeeding at attaining or having them preserve your house as a family home. Now, the second thing that you should be thinking about, that you should now be incorporating in your thinking, if you're someone who wants to leave behind a family home and it continues to function as such, you need to make it a point that you plan your affairs and make sure you structure your things so that it works with the current legal system. Like I said to you, if you have the desire that this must be a family home, and you just pass away without a will, without structuring anything, what's going to happen is that this property is going to be inherited by people. And those people are going to be the ones who determine whether or not this property ends up being a family home, right? If one of the people says, you know what, me, I couldn't care less, I want out, they have a right to sell their share. And the others, if they want to keep this as a family home, will have to buy that one out, right? And if they can't, this is where then things get compromised, because that property might be sold altogether so that people can get their monetary value, because that's what they inherited. It's just that it was in the form of a property. So sit down with someone, plan, draft your will, put down terms, ask which terms can actually be incorporated in your will so that you can push this agenda of yours. See if you cannot use maybe an entity that could help push this agenda of yours of, preserving the house that you have as a family home. Because like I said, if you don't plan, unfortunately, the people you're going to leave behind are the ones who are going to be the decision makers. And if they are not in consensus, unfortunately, it often will fail and it will not come to pass. The third thing, also think about how things unravel as we go along. The children are going to get married. How is this home going to operate? Does it mean that the people that marry into this family also now have access to it? Are they also beneficiaries of this family home? How is it going to work? Because remember, your children get married, they also procreate, etc. How is it going to operate, right? How, in a practical sense, can everybody be able to make this 2-bedroom house work as a family home without fighting? Again, like I said, if you leave it to individuals, they've got rights. You'll find people putting in tenants there, saying that I can come live with my spouse here because I have a share. You'll find others not wanting to pay rates and taxes, but they live on the property. So what's the solution? You have to think about these things right now. Be forward looking, because believe you me, I'm not sure if you're seeing what's happening here. A lot of people are disputing day in and day out because of these types of family homes, because not a lot of thought was put into it. People have this idea, or had this idea, and thought because back in the day it used to work seamlessly, it's also going to be the same now. Well, unfortunately, that is not the case anymore, because one, people are, like I said, they're much more different. They don't like problems. If that property that you're leaving behind is going to be problematic and their name has to be there, they want out because they don't want issues. And number two, a lot of people know their rights nowadays. They know where they stand when they inherit. And so if a person looks at a property and sees that, okay, the share that I have in this property maybe is about 250,000 Rand. Now they're thinking differently. They could think, okay, this I could use maybe to start a business because my life is stagnant. Maybe I could use this amount of money to go back to school. And therefore, they will want to push the agenda of selling this property, right? So these are things that you have to recognize and understand and come to terms with, because otherwise you will be leaving a lot of people, or rather, in turmoil. So know exactly what this means, know how you need to plan for it, put those things in place, and try to incorporate your thinking and your vision with the current system or the current laws of South Africa. Otherwise, once you don't do that and just say things loosely, you create a lot of havoc in your family. Well, guys, the last thing I just want to add is that the best way, unfortunately, if you really want to keep a house and a movable property in a family, unfettered, right, with no one being able to encumber it or sell it, your only best bet is a trust. And unfortunately, there isn't much you can do if you leave it in the names of individuals, which is your other option. So it's either you accept that and you come to terms with it and you plan in this regard, or alternatively, you find another way in which to make sure that your children that you're leaving behind are always going to have refuge in the form of a home. But other than that, guys, the law has developed. In fact, we just need to come to terms with it and plan around it so that these things can work. Because once you don't plan properly, there's probably going to be someone who's going to be left destitute as soon as the fights erupt, when you are no longer there. Right, guys, this brings us to the end of this discussion. I just wanted to unpack that just so that we could be aware and maybe plan things a bit better. Guys, these are conversations that are going to take time for us to understand and incorporate in our lives. But the most important thing is that we need to have them, we need to unpack them so that we can understand them better. Guys, this is the end of the discussion. I will see you next time. Again, if you found it useful, you share it with others, you talk about it, right? You do whatever it is so that others can also get the kind of education that you've gotten here. Right, let's go. We will see you next time.